Hi everyone. Welcome to the Patriot Pair podcast, where we present our views on the raging issues from geopolitics to culture and everything in between. So, let's get started with today's episode.
The topic is
The Kashmir crisis and the weird reactions that people are giving all over
less
the
so
internet.
even about the Kashmir crisis, the more so about the reactions of non-Indian, non-Pakistani, unrelated
It's not
European white liberals.
See, personally, I don't have a problem with who they are. My bigger issue is people who have not enough information to give,
People who can't Google, people who don't do a single
just
Google
not
search.
willing to put in the work, put in any iota of effort to actually develop a proper thought. They have gone into it being like, we read this article from this big publishing house and that article from another big publishing
And
house, and
that is
obviously
also a
we
misnomer.
just-
They didn't read the article, they read the headline. And they even cited the headlines. We are talking about a few specific ones, but we won't name most of them. Just a few, the major culprits.
the
being,
ones that stuck out.
Yeah, for example, the one that really, and I don't know why YouTube keeps suggesting that particular one to me, and I guess they're pushing it out because it's a liberal podcast, the Lotus Eaters.
Or
The podcast of the Lotus Eaters.
the something of the mummy eaters. I don't know.
Yeah.
So basically,
Three fancy inbred Brits sitting there talking shit about Indian roads and India this and India that, and how so many Indians are occupying their country. Boo frickin' who?
no, it's not even that. My biggest issue was just the way they started off their specific coverage of this whole issue, of saying that that's basically the TLDR of this issue is two types of people who are basically identical, other than an opinion, and are
That's-
angry at each other.
Okay, let me figure out exactly. We should have written down the quote. But something.
That is the quote. Two types of people who are basically identical, other than an opinion, are now angry at one another.
And what are the two kinds of people they're talking about? They're
Indians
talking
and
about.
Pakistanis.
Yeah. So, and what's the single opinion that we disagree upon?
And my whole
And
point
they
is
actually
two
said,
types of people, like two similar
Oh, we'll get
types
to
of
that.
people.
We'll get to that. But we need to talk about the opinion that they actually said, that the opinion that we disagree on is
Yeah.
who owns this land. Yeah, that could be said about every single country on the planet. You have your own country because you disagree with the other country that is yours.
No, but I'll say this: all of the Europeans essentially look the same to me.
Yeah, inbred you mean?
It's just
Royal.
I think that's for Europe. I can say to many different kinds of people who are essentially the same, but just differentiated by rates of inbreeding and some opinions.
So what you mean is they're essentially different levels of messed up teeth.
Anyway, my point being, these people really their initial statement reflects to me exactly how less they know about the conflict, least bit of information they have about our countries. Step away from the racism bit.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not racist. We're not being racist here.
Yes.
And I, by the way, have no problem if you think I'm racist. If you think I'm racist, cool. I am then. But what I am being is opinionist. I don't have a problem with all white people. I don't have a problem with all Brits. I have a problem with people who think I am exactly the same as the next guy who has the same skin color. I don't. Martin Luther King Jr., as many shenanigans of his came out in the JFK assassination files, he still had some good opinions. Just because he was doing debauchery does not mean all his opinions were wrong. So, yeah, judge me on the contents of my character, not on the color of my skin.
True. But again, coming back to these people.
But these
with
people
their-
have the same mindset that was there, and it wasn't that far back. So
There's still
70 years ago.
they're still talking as if they're in control of India.
Oh, they constantly do.
Okay, let's put in a TLDR for their episode since they're putting a TLDR for this whole incident. Three inbreds think they are still in control of India and are wondering why is India not acting as if they are still under our control.
Okay,
And
let's go point by
moving-
point.
yeah.
So, this one particular quote about just signifying their extreme bigotry and racism, which it hurts me to say this. It hurts me to say this. Okay, they called these kinds of people. I'm not going to say they exactly did because I have no proof saying that they did. But a lot of this kind of people called Kash Patel the sand N-word.
Yes.
And I'll tell you what, I bet Kash had a good laugh about it. That wasn't that racist. Yes, I know it seems weird, but that wasn't that racist. This is more racist.
Yep.
That didn't
I mean,
face me that way.
I'm pretty sure these people think that Meghan Markle and Candace Owens are the same people because
Oh, definitely do.
Same skin color, so definitely the same person.
Yes, the only thing that differentiates them is
Maybe an opinion.
maybe an opinion and a little bit of royal something, I guess. Now,
No. Anyway, so basically they then got into this whole discussion of how because of the Kashmir issue and since the very partition we've had conflicts
Because
over
of
the
them.
area, which they absolutely ignored. But they noted that there have been conflicts since the time of independence, since the time of India and Pakistan separation, and talked about how there have been a lot of Islamist and Pakistani terror attacks. On which note, they then proceeded later to mention that there have also been terror attacks from India, and
they never named a single one.
they conflated it with the Sikh separatist attacks.
Even with those 6 separatist attacks, even there, let's say, even if I was willing to concede that, which by the way I am not, but even if I was willing to concede that, they could not name any singular point there. They could not name any singular attack, a date, even a name, nothing. All they said was some train derailments, which I have no idea what they're talking about. Maybe I need to do better research. Maybe they need to do better research.
Yeah.
Which, if you all you need to do is give them a listen. And yeah, I have no problem. Do give them a listen. Give them all the reach they need. Cool. Give them all the hate they need because they need to. You need to know how these people think. They're not few people. That's the European white liberal mindset, and liberal is the key word here.
Yeah, it's not about the race, it's about that specific mindset.
Yes.
And it's just prevalent in that certain group of people we're talking about.
You know who those people are? They're the people who dodged the draft. They're the people who ran away from the war. They're the people who never defended their homeland. They're the people who only asked for handouts, and because they never fought, because they never took a stand, because they only had opinion, they were the writers, the journalists. Those people who then, because they survived and the good men died. These are those generations forward. And the inbreeding didn't help.
Yeah, definitely did not, because how else do you end up calling Pahalgam Pahalgam? It's P. It's P-A. It's not P-H unless I don't know. I
No,
just
the
feel
pronunciation.
suddenly weird giving them an English lesson.
They severely need. I mean,
In which word does P-A get pronounced as F? Unless you're talking about F.
as we said, messed up teeth. But I don't want to punch down to these people who are not mentally all there and are so severely inbred. These people have been inbred longer than Alabama has existed.
So, and on which note, they then went on to, I guess, appreciate Pahalgam for its beauty and assumed, apparently, that's their assumption that all of this area is
That's how
South
smart.
Asia
Again, we come to
is
their.
a gigantic desert.
Oh yes, one person said, "In my mind, it's all." This is a quote. In my mind, the whole of Asia has always been a gigantic desert.
I guess they think we're
nothing
Middle
grows there. Nothing. Yeah, that's what they think. Middle East.
They really lack imagination.
No, it's not even imagination. It's basic geographical sense. It's.
Yeah.
I mean,
For people who till less than 100 years ago in control of this subcontinent, I'd expect them to have better knowledge of what was going on here.
Oh, if you think these were the kinds of people, no, again, these were the journalists. Those people who, at least they had some cunning and some smartness to survive in India and take over our land for so long. They had, I'm not giving them too much credit, but they were better than these guys at least. Saying these were the same people is just an insult to us.
On which note, really, I feel like Brits should not have any higher...
They should not have a higher ground.
Try and hold any higher ground over us Indians or India as
When
a
was
whole.
the last colony liberated? What was the year?
I guess 1980s, 1990s.
1980s, 1990s.
Yeah.
When was World War II ended?
Way back when.
Yeah. So, their problem was what? About the moral high grounds of... They used us. They used the Indians in World War II, by the way. In France, a whole lot of Indians died, and they were using us for meatball tactics. Who were fighting the Nazis in France.
Yes.
And who died defending France while French people gave up.
Yes. But again, these people really try and take a higher ground on their... they cited, for example, that certain parts of Kashmir are occupied by Pakistan and certain parts by India. India is not occupying Kashmir.
India owns it.
It's not about owning. Kashmir is part of India. It's not ownership.
Hey, how about that?
Else.
How about this? Pakistan is part of India. It's supposed to be part of India until the two-nation theory came about by these people.
No, I'm not talking about that. That's way back. I'm saying...
Historically,
legally, there was a certain agreement that was signed by then King of Kashmir so that he could join his territory in as part of India. India is...
I get your perspective. That is absolutely correct.
Which Kashmir is part of. It is in no way, shape or form a part of Pakistan. I have no idea where there has ever been such big an issue at acknowledging the simple fact that Kashmir became part of India.
What you're talking about is again the UN Council stuff, and sure, we'll get there. And yes, to me your point is valid, but again also the point of that was way back when they divided our nation. No, it wasn't way back when. How many years has it been?
Since when?
Since independence, 1947.
47, so it's been almost 80 years.
80 years.
Yes, it's 78. Yes.
Yeah, is that a whole lot of years? I don't think so.
It's less than 100 years, obviously it's not a whole lot.
Yeah, so no, it wasn't way back when. And these people are the ones who created these two nations.
Like
actually,
my grandfather was a teen back when India gained its independence.
Yes, and in fact, it wasn't even two nations. They created... essentially de facto three by dividing Pakistan in two, one on either side of India,
which was really a marvel of the brain cells, if you can wonder why.
That was a strategic move to make sure that this population controls that population.
Constant strife, that's what they were aiming for, not peace.
Just like in Africa, you mean?
Yes. Well, anyway, I'm coming back to the Kashmir issue. India occupied Kashmir is simply not a thing, because during the time of independence, Kashmir's king decided and signed an agreement. It was some Hindu king, I forget his. That king signed an agreement, as did many kingdoms at that point of time. There were so many kings.
For example, Lucknow ke Nawab, mostly.
Lucknow, there was Gwalior, there were so many kings who signed the treaty to join into the nation of India.
On varying conditions.
Yeah, on their own conditions, obviously. Each territory had their own
same thing. As if we've never seen that before. The United States of America. Each state joined in and submitted their own state constitution, essentially meaning
their own set of
conditions. Yeah, same thing happened with Kashmir. It is a republic.
But I think, Pakistan is a sore loser. They started off the issue again. They decided not to settle down, and they raised the whole issue, got it to an international scale with the...
I mean, there was a lacking in our readers too, but we're deviating from the topic very massively.
Yes.
The topic again was these people do not have the high ground to talk about our problems, least of all in such a derogatory fashion, and being so
Obtuse about it.
Obtuse about it, racist about it. I hate saying racist so much because this word has lost its meaning because of these kind of people.
Precisely.
But they again show that they are what they call us. They are the racists.
They really,
Left people I'm talking about.
Yes, the left liberals, in specific to their case, the podcast we are citing, and other such many.
Mostly, this kind of
journalists.
opinions are coming out of left liberal outlets.
It's mainly
Problem is
also,
there's so many of them.
I feel like specifically the European left liberal is being that is causing the dearth of sensibility in society.
The problem is the Indian liberal also does the same thing, and I'm not saying they read a lot, but they read a little more than these people, which is astonishing for these people to be claiming that they're more highly educated. Yeah, your own ilk in just a different country that you call a shithole country are reading and doing more research than you are about a topic you have the goal to talk about. Do a simple Google search, I guess.
Problem that is
you have a lot of research tool these days. I mean, you have a whole bunch of AI agents to do simple researches. Just Google it.
At least more research than I say reading 2 headlines in some obsolete, publishing houses articles.
Yeah.
And I genuinely do not understand, they went on to talk about India's response, on which they again taking the higher ground as Brits, as if they're setting the trend for how you should do anything in life, including their response to the terrorist attack, is as if treating the terrorists as agents of Pakistani government,
which they are.
No, I am saying, unlike they basically said, unlike what the Western governments do. Really?
Number one. No, they don't. No, they don't.
That's precisely along the lines of what every Western government or Eastern government or for any godforsaken.
And in fact, I absolutely agree with that. When they do that, I agree with that. They should do that.
And my simple point is, for especially a situation where a nation is a bordering state and years on years.
It's not the first time.
This is a common trend. This is not something they have done different from their usual behavior. Are we really supposed to sit back and take a back seat and just be forgive and forget?
Point is, these people are the ones who are going to criticize our response. These people are the same people who ban guns, and when beheadings happen in their capitals, they start to ban knives. Not the people who do the beheadings.
And ban pepper sprays and ban existing soon, I guess.
And now
that's the root.
And now they're trying to ban ninja swords because, yeah, sure, you're gonna find a whole bunch of ninjas. The ninjas are the ones doing all the.
Well, how are you gonna spot a ninja? That's a bad ninja.
That is a bad ninja, but because they're banning ninja swords because ninjas are the one who cry their god is great before they go on a killing spree.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, next is what? Shuriken? I guess shurikens are already banned in
I think they are.
Yeah. Which, I mean, this also brings to,
are they going to ban chopsticks soon? Because they are also kind of sharpable.
It's a different, I know it's a deviation from the topic, but it is a funny thing that their weird racism, weird British obtuseness goes in very, very interesting facets. For example, they're not very racist against Chinese, Asian people in banning things. They're just specifically racist against ninjas. I don't know why. I don't know what happened with England and ninjas, but there's a whole bunch of ninja equipment that they banned, which mostly you'd be hard pressed to find.
I forget the series, but did they really target a lot of Brits in that?
Which one? Naruto?
No, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Maybe that's why.
Maybe.
Turtle power.
Well, coming back to the topic.
Yeah.
Apart from them banning the tools rather than the person using the tools, their response is always, if a gun killed a person, you should ban the gun, not the person firing it.
No, I mean, don't ban the person, but it's more...
Yeah, ban the person from breathing.
Well, that's obviously a, down the water solution to that. My whole point is
How is it down the water solution?
No, I'm saying obviously...
Right.
Yeah. I mean, with proper proof, I am saying all of that. Don't just immediately.
Oh no, my solution is bad guy with a gun is stopped by a good guy with a gun. But they won't understand that concept. And I'm saddened to say here, you wanted to talk about this topic too, but again, it's spicy begets spicy, I guess. And a lot of our Indian brethren have a problem with gun culture. I have a problem with thug culture, not gun culture.
It's not the
waving
tool,
around
it
your
is the
illegal
people.
guns. Yes, it's not the tool, it's the people. Those people who came around waving their guns and causing terror
I will say this.
are the bad people. But don't blame the guns for that.
Exactly. In this, for example, in Kashmir situation as well, what if instead of the guns they had come along with swords and stabbed the people instead of shooting them?
Which wouldn't be something unheard of.
Yes, that has also happened. Beheadings
Also,
using swords.
I'll
and
give you
knives
another
have
example.
happened.
What if when they came along with guns, all the people there were also armed? Sure, there would still be casualties. But
Definitely.
they wouldn't have to bow down. They wouldn't have to
Cover.
They wouldn't be so helpless in that situation where
Because there is no official security, there's no police presence, and then you suddenly.
forget this official security. What I'm saying is they did not have any tools to defend themselves. What did they have? The gun is called the great equalizer, because no matter how big you are, it's still gonna hurt when you get shot.
You're a man or a woman wielding a gun and you know how to use it in a safe and proper fashion. Well,
Safe
you-
and proper fashion being the key thing.
Exactly, which we really forget in India with all those hooligans
And we
doing aerial shots during weddings.
Yes,
That's the supposed.
that's the Pakistani wedding kind of stuff. That's the kind of videos I expect to come out of Afghanistan and Pakistan, and that's the kind of behaviors that those hooligans have. And
not from
why
India,
we
and we do it here.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying. Why do we emulate that? We emulate the thug culture. That's what I'm talking about. But anyway, I'm digressing from the point very much. So coming back to the topic, these people have a problem with our response, which is, I would say, not
Pretty good in mind.
I would say not strong enough. Our response is just Pakistan-sponsored terror. How about all Pakistanis leave right now? Go back to your country.
Yeah.
We don't need more of you. We don't need any more relations with you. We don't need to
Yeah,
talk to
we
you.
basically don't want to encourage
It's
or
a-
support your own financial or physical
We don't
health.
want to prop you up any longer.
Yeah, we basically don't want you to cash off of our good system.
Yeah, we don't want to prop you up because their whole economy is propped up by us.
Yes.
We don't want to prop you up any longer. Go back to your own country and look after yourself. It is simply a very mild breakup. It is a simply mild breakup as opposed to what it should be, a bashing.
No, I'm saying, for example, these people also talked about how this was such a big response, and apparently that pretty strong response for a single terrorist attack.
Also, the single terrorist attack thing got me.
Yeah, and also what would be better? Like, you could have also done just forgive and move on, but this response is a very pagan way.
I want to talk about the forgive and move on thing.
There is a lot to dissect in this specific statement.
Specifically from the British about the forgive and move on. Hey, how about this? You know what? I'm going to remove us from the conversation and just talk about the Irish. Mm-hmm. Hey, they did one bombing. How about you forgive and move on? It's about a single terrorist attack. Or about two, or about three. It's just particular singular instances.
Way less than I'd say Pakistan does with us.
Yeah.
And it's a very different
Why
dynamic.
didn't you forgive and move on?
They should, and not respond in a very pagan way, I guess. Apparently that's
another thing, which the statement that just got me. The pagan way? What do you mean pagan way?
And also way before us, and in this situation, and in today's day and age, when we're actually doing something in response and not just crying about peace and harmony between the two countries. Way back when there was an attack in a specific country on 9/11, and they responded in a much stronger fashion.
And I agree with that response.
Where they did not just deport and send back or tell the citizens of a specific country to go back to their own country. They decided to actually take a very strong step, which was more strategic in a security standpoint,
And-
as much as India's response is very humanitarian right
And
now.
in that, people also criticize that they were being racist against the whole Asian community. I say still that response was too mild. In my perspective, they should have gone harder, but they zeroed in on the wrong segment of society.
That I believe
the
was also-
whole problem of the West of coupling Indians with the rest of them,
I think they just see like, brown one, brown two.
which is just, I don't know how to.
A lot of people, I guess, also get us confused with Mexicans.
I
But
don't-
brown one, brown two, and brown three.
I don't have that much of a problem with being
No,
confused with
I'm
Mexicans.
not talking about that. I'm just saying their POV about us specifically is just,
Just color based, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, and the turban.
Yeah.
Someone really needs to tell them that
It's a different kind of turban, and
it's
not all
even
in
a turban.
the Afghani turban. You mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a turban, but cool. Even if you want to classify it,
Yeah,
it's the
yeah.
same thing. Cool. If you want to say that okay. At least see, there's two kinds of him.
Be basically more.
One's generally colorful, one's not.
No, not even that. I'll just say simply, I understand you wanna, when your country has been through such a dire situation and a very bad terrorist attack, your initial response is automatically, go scorched earth. But, maybe be a little more judicious and actually
No, that's what I'm saying. I
it.
agree. My only
Yeah.
problem is that they zeroed in on the wrong
Exactly.
community, because they went in full emotion, but again, I would still say absolutely valid at that point. Yes, absolutely understandable and absolutely valid. It's only
They
down
could
the
have
line.
done it better.
Hindsight 2020.
Yep.
Right, you can always and yeah, that doesn't apply to the British, so don't you try to even think about saying
No, but my whole point
hindsight
is,
2020. You ruled us for longer than we've been free. So
my whole point is also they really have no leg to stand on over criticizing our response.
Over atrocities?
No, I'm saying they're saying basically it's a very hardline response on going after the citizens of a specific country just because they did something to you, and over one terrorist. First off, it's not one. It's been there literally since the day we got our independence, and so did they.
thanks, Brits.
Anyway.
And another thing is, they later on even agreed that maybe they should also follow this example.
Yeah, but it went through a very
So they
bad
want to
pathway.
criticize us, but they're like that snotty girl who keeps on saying that you're stupid, but still tries to copy your answers.
In school, yeah. And they even quoted J.D. Vance apparently saying something, repeatedly saying Britain could be the world's first Islamist nuclear armed state. And then they defended that by saying, no, that is Pakistan. And I'm really like, dude, that's not the defense you think it is.
I mean, cool. You want to consider that nuclear armed? Okay, they have nuclear weapons.
No, I'm saying Pakistan has that, and
Even Pakistan doesn't try to defend
what
themselves.
J.D. Vance is talking about is very different from that. I'm like, if you're making your peace with being the second Islamist nuclear armed state, is really not
that
the
is a
defense.
whole can of worms in itself, which, by the way, is happening. But even Pakistan isn't defending themselves that hard as these people are.
Yeah, apparently.
These people are just.
While also,
what are they paying you, bud?
And that's.
Are they giving them?
And that's while they're also constantly also mentioning that yes, Pakistan does sponsor a lot of terrorist attacks, and yes, they are all. Pakistan is a very strongly Islamist state, even more than the Arabian countries. And while mentioning that yes, Pakistan also harbored Bin Laden during. After post 9/11,
Yeah, they acknowledged all that and then reverted back to, but India's response is too harsh.
How's that harsh? And at the same time,
And my question is, how has the world always tolerated Pakistan for so long after all this stuff?
not just tolerated.
They prop them up.
Exactly. They
For
went
example-
on to constantly back them, and that is really messed up.
Oh, I want to cite a few examples. For example, USAID, that USAID that Trump abolished, gave $110,000 to Pakistan through HHRD, a program that directly funded.
Lecturer Taiba.
Yeah.
And by this also
And
part, I don't know if the
The
whole
budget
of this,
right before this one, the budget right before Trump came in, where they were trying to pass the omnibus bill, had a provision for funding gender studies in Pakistan.
I'm like,
And no, they weren't. The money wasn't going to gender studies.
wink, wink.
Yeah.
If spelling it out for the people who aren't getting it.
Yeah, if you're not picking up what I'm putting down.
Yeah.
And they did that twice. Before that, before this bill, they had already funded quote unquote gender studies in Pakistan twice.
See, that is the bigger issue in all of this. It is not just about the global response to the current issue in Kashmir, this recent terrorist attack. It's the overall take on how India has constantly tried to take a stance on the global front against this Pakistani backed and sponsored terrorism, and how we have constantly been whittled down because I have no idea. Every country has their own ulterior motives. There are obviously the left and right division is there. I am not going to be one of those people who will give the total and complete blame to a country just because a certain party in power chose to do that.
Which already makes us the minority. Having just two brain cells, and I'm not claiming I have more than two. I just have two brain cells to rub together. One is mine, one is hers.
Yeah.
We rub our brain cells together and we figure out.
That sounds bad.
Yeah. But basically, we are able to figure out with our very, very, very limited understanding and intelligence, very limited. Still, we are able to figure out, being poor little Indians, being brown-skinned, all that, we're still able to figure out that, it's not the whole country, it's just a segment. It's just a few people. Not all Indians are bad, just like not all British are bad, just like not all Africans are bad, just not like, it's not, all generalizations are wrong, including this one.
See,
someone smarter than me said that once.
I will simply say this. Obviously, I'm not even going to go very deep into it, going into just my own country's history. There have been different parties at different times in our history.
Yes.
And obviously, because of their left and right leanings, each party has their own priorities, and they have obviously very different actions as to how they choose to respond to a certain situation. And I'm not going to be the person, if I'm not agreeing with a certain decision, that the whole country as a whole is bad and the people are absolutely wrong.
I'll say in this that Indian media is also to blame here. When Biden was in power, they were blaming the whole of US. Now Trump is in power, the other side is blaming the whole of US. It's not the whole of US. Sure, actually, in the case of Trump, it's more so of the US because he has the popular mandate, believe it or not. You can choose to believe your own facts, but they don't chase the facts.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. But the thing is, just because a party is in power doesn't mean the whole country is going in that particular direction. Now, pivoting back to the point, they also cited the terror attack in Pakistan
done by the Afghanistanis, terrorist group or the.
It's not essentially the terror attack. Not the terror attack. You mean the invasion happening?
Yeah, insurgency and invasion happening from the Afghanistan.
I won't call that a terror attack. They declared a war, and they declared it beforehand. They declared it many times before the attack.
Yeah, basically, they're
because it's against their pretty little beautiful Pakistan.
Basically, they were friends before. Now they've had their own kind of breakup, and now they're
but these Brits, because it's against their preferred country, because it's against Pakistan, then it's a terror attack.
Yes, apparently their preferred country.
If Pakistan does it, it's not terror attack. It's just some terrorists did this, but Pakistan is not involved. But if it happens to Pakistan, then it's a terror attack, right?
Yes, because like they chose to say during this invasion by Afghanistan into Pakistan, as a response, Pakistan chose to do the same thing India is doing right now, where they chose to send back and deport the Afghanistani citizens living in Pakistan. They decided to deport them. And to that time, the podcasters mentioned that, some of the whiners were crying about human rights and everything. Suddenly the people crying about human rights and their response are whiners. In the situation in Pakistan is the one deporting these people. But
in this situation,
for India doing it, suddenly
they're the political pundits. They're not the whiners then, right? Well, let's move on to other.
But as a global cover overall of the responses of the Western countries as a whole, they have thwarted India's attempts at taking a stance on the global level, trying to raise these issues of Kashmir as a specific and terrorism sponsored by Pakistan as a whole on the global stage in UN and likewise.
For example, in 2010 and 12, India had the credentials to lead the counter-terrorism committee in UN, but UK specifically opposed India, citing the security of Pakistan, which at that point was commonly known to harbor terrorists and was the training ground for a lot of terrorist organizations.
And 2010 and 12, that is right after Bin Laden.
Raid,
in 2008.
which by the way happened in Pakistan. They were hiding Bin Laden.
So this
It is commonly known.
India's bid to get the counter-terrorism thing in
Lead
UN
position.
was right around the time that Bin Laden's raid was had happened in Pakistan, and this was UK's response.
And this was so blatantly biased.
Yep.
It was, but nobody, no liberal outlets, no big outlets would talk about it. Of course they wouldn't.
Definitely.
Another thing is the UK's different MPs of UK's have had the stance on Kashmir. For example, you would pronounce their names better. I would butcher them and happily so claim
But
they
just
deserve.
for
I would very happily butcher their names and claim, yeah, you do that to us, I do that to you, but not gonna bash down on the inbreds. So
yes, at a bid for clarity of identification, Andrew Gwynn, Angela Rayner, and Debbie Abrams
have publicly stated that Kashmir is an international issue, calling for global intervention and raising concerns about human rights in Indian-administered Kashmir. Yeah, and never talk about the Pakistan-administered Kashmir or Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. There must not be any human rights.
They're absolutely happy with aligning with Pakistan's stance on the Kashmiri agenda.
Also, in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, they have talked about the atrocities the Indian military is doing or was doing at that point, according to them,
yes,
in Indian occupied Kashmir, but they would never talk about what was happening in Pakistan occupied Kashmir.
And
they didn't have just recently, previous year they were there was a lot of reports coming out that Pakistan occupied Kashmiri people were crying to be made part of India because they could not afford flour.
I have a bigger stance on that. Pakistan occupied Kashmir is a big thing to talk about. Look at Pakistan occupied Pakistan.
Yeah.
Look at the state of those people, and like, dude, you're trying to onboard more citizens. It's like a company trying to onboard more clients while their existing clients are already crying about the customer service. Like, maybe just improve your service before you try and upscale your.
Let's get a little more specific. They don't have any money. They are defaulting on the World Bank loans that they've taken.
Handouts.
The handouts from the world at this point they have taken, and now no country would lend them any money. Even their beloved UK is not giving them any more money.
Yep.
They will only support them in words, but the UK MPs would never talk about that, right? Because I mean, another thing that comes to my mind about this and their discrimination against all brown skins in England and in the whole of UK by just calling us all Pakis.
Yeah, but
That is one thing that has always stung me, because see, a Pakistani wouldn't mind it that much, even though that's still a slur to them, but to an Indian that's a big slur.
Aside from the whole connotation, even I am just miffed about the simple fact. Dude, Pakistan came from India. At least give creds to the, like, if you want to make a slur about a country, well, how about you make a slur based off of the OG
Indies.
country?
Yeah, Indies.
I think they get confused with West Indies. But then again, brown, white.
But then again, the inbred has only so much brain power to diversify in such situations.
Yeah.
But how about we call them whiteys? Or
there was this one comedian I came across and who made a very nice point about this. Of how the white liberal will choose to call us the colored people, and the blacks, the browns, and the yellows, apparently, which I'm still confused about. But we call the colored population, of which it is just weird because we are more in population. So if that is so, they are not the people and not us the colored people. It should be the other way around. How about the colored people are just called
the people.
And they are called
the colorless people. The translucents.
The pale horse.
They are the pale horse. With disease, with I don't know what all. And that's a whole lot of history to talk about. And I am just getting a whole bunch of points of all the kinds of things they did. But then again, I don't want to dwell in the past. Not in this episode. We will dwell very much later on. But moving on to other topic, moving on to other points in this.
During the partition itself is such a, like, obviously I will not make this point of, racism big bad and whatnot. I know it has been a big part of existence as a whole. Racism initially is just a identifier for, you see a person who's different looking than you, comes from a different area, speaks a different language, eats different, wears different clothes.
That's not racism. That's just identifying a different person.
But when you, in today's day and age, have the tools of having more information, actually getting to know certain people,
see,
and
this is where I would like to clarify. Racism is not when you see a different person and identify that they're different from you. Racism is when you take that and say, you're inferior to me. Essentially, the whole of racism is only when you say you, because of your color, because of the color of your skin, are inferior to me. Solely because of the color of your skin, when you are inferior to me, is when I'm racist.
And on which note,
other things are not racist. This word has been beaten down so hard. This horse has been beaten down into glue, and they've snorted up the glue and shat it all across. It's meaningless at this point. Racism is nothing except discriminating based on the color. And no,
it can happen for any race. It is not just the
it happens against the whites too, a lot of times.
Yes.
For example, all the MAGA people, they are being discriminated against a lot of times.
Yes.
All the Tesla owners, be it whatever color, you're being discriminated against. It's not racism, it's just Teslaism, I guess, at this point.
Tism.
And all this talk about our policies and our responses to terrorism, it's all big talk coming from people whose economy has always been propped up, and to a certain extent is still propped up by the once quote-unquote colonies.
Yes.
These mummy-eating freaks talk about our dirty streets. These people who till the 1950s still didn't have clean sewage systems.
Yeah, their horses were pooping up.
Where did the Black Plague come from? Where did it start, you dirty... I don't want to cuss.
Non-bathing people.
I don't want to cuss.
Yeah, I just, they're just... Well, again, going off of that point...
Tell me one disease that came from India.
Going away from that point, coming back to the point at hand, is basically them, again with their higher horse over the response, while they are the people who have actually fanned the flames historically, that has led to this issue ballooning up so bad that 26 to 28 people now have lost their lives over.
But oh no, they must use this as the political point making. They have no remorse, they have no shame.
I am saying they're not even making a political point, or all they're using this event even is still to take a higher ground and be on the high horse and tell us on all how they did everything better, and we didn't never respond
and
this way, and we never do this and never do that. Well, how are you enjoying the consequences of your very own actions?
And how about this? What could have been a better response is just, even if you just came out and said we hate India and this thing that happened was still wrong, condolences to the families, and just shut up about it after that. How about that? Just at least take a little bit of time before something happens. The bodies are hardly in the ground or cremated.
In our case, yeah. In the ground / cremated, because there was...
For their limited understanding,
yes.
Yeah. Anyway, now I guess we should end it.
Well, that's all for today. Thank you for being so patient and listening to our...
Rumbling rants.
Mad ramblings or...
Rumbling rants. Maybe that's the name for the podcast.
No, it's not, because rumbling is not actually anything that's...
Ranting rumbles.
That sounds bad.
Because rumble, I want to...
Well, okay, thank you so much for... Yeah. Well, we'll see you the next time.
It does seem like a rumbling rant at this point. Okay,
it's rambling. It's not rumbling.
But the platform's name is Rumble, so...
We are not the platform.
Rumble, you grumble. Cool, out.